Warning! The following contains nothing but spoilers to the Warcraft movie. So I went to see the Warcraft movie and,
Disgusting is the only word I have to describe it.
Now the good news is the Warcraft movie was incredibly successful, which means we will likely see a Warcraft 2 and 3 in theaters. The bad news is, I felt drastically more entertained watching YouTube lore videos after the movie. Now, before I analyze this mess, I should explain that this is not technically a video game movie. The events in the movie do correlate with Warcraft, Orcs, and Humans for the PC, but we're talking about a video game released in 1992, meaning the storyline looks something like this.
The evil warlock Medivh has begun draining the soul of the land itself to increase his dark powers. You must take a party into his tower.
It's amazing.
And destroy
and my favorite part has to be when...
Your task is simple enough that even the war chief feels that you are capable of it. Construct at least 6 farms so that we may keep our troops well fed and ready to do battle.
But for its time, this was groundbreaking storytelling, especially in the real-time strategy genre. I mean, there were characters with names! Suffice to say, the story has been drastically rewritten. The characters were given backstories, thanks to a series of Warcraft comics and novels such as The Last Guardian by Jeff Groh. I will be referring to this expansive body of work as the Warcraft lore to contrast with the events depicted in the Warcraft movie. Now, without further ado, here are my top 10 worst changes made for the Warcraft movie. Number 10. Stormwind is still standing. Real-time strategy games have never been famous for their storylines, but they do allow the player to see both sides of a war. What this meant for Warcraft 1 was that if you played as the humans, you got a story where the humans win, and if you played as the orcs, you got a story where the orcs win. Naturally, these endings contradict each other, so when Blizzard was making a sequel, they made a bold choice. They wrote off the human ending as non-canon, and decided the true ending of Warcraft 1 would be where the orcs win and the humans lose. Sadly, the movie completely screwed this up. Instead of showing the humans escaping on boats to fight another day, we get an all live happily ever after ending where it really doesn't fit. The only reason this is so low on the list is that I kind of expected the movie to play it safe. Number 9. The Dark Portal gets redirected to Stormwind. There are a lot of changes made to the Dark Portal in the movie, but easily the worst of these changes happens at the very end of the movie, where Medivh reroutes the Dark Portal to Stormwind, allowing for the humans to escape.
That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
Okay, so a portal between 2 planets that requires tons of souls and loads of incantations can be redirected by just saying Stormwind? At no extra cost? And even if we accept this ridiculous idea, what's stopping the orcs from going through this new portal? Number 8. Anduin Lothar and the tragic death of his son. Anduin Lothar in the movie is supposed to be our human protagonist. Oh, hang on a second, that's not Lothar, that's Aragorn from Lord of the Rings. Sorry about that, I don't know how I confused those two. Anyways, Lothar in the movie is supposed to be our human protagonist, and spends most of the movie traveling all over the world talking to a variety of characters who are all drastically more relevant to the plot than he is. In the lore, Lothar really didn't do a whole lot. He was childhood friends with Medivh, he got captured by some ogres, and he eventually joins Khadgar and Garona for their battle when they learn of Medivh's betrayal. Everything else you see him do on screen, aside from leading battles, was added in. The most ridiculous of these additions would be Lothar's expendable plot device. I can't remember his name, and to be honest, I don't care, because it was painfully obvious within about 5 minutes of meeting him that he was going to be killed off to give Lothar something resembling character development. Number 7. Khadgar is changed from secret agent to idiot sidekick. Out of all our main characters, Khadgar was changed the least. He's an apprentice to Medivh, he's the one who discovers Medivh's betrayal. So far so good. The problem is characterization. I suspect the marketing department wanted Lothar to have a sidekick who was immature, afraid of responsibility, and could eventually overcome his own insecurities and thus appeal to the teenage demographic. As a result, movie Khadgar is a coward who runs away from his apprenticeship and spends the entire movie in a perpetual state of dazed confusion. His discovery of Medivh's betrayal is also changed. He sees Medivh's eyes flash green, and then travels all the way to Dalaran to be told exactly what he already figured out. Contrast with the lore, where Khadgar is a powerful mage sent by the Council of Magi. He's supposed to be Medivh's apprentice, but his actual job is keeping a watch over the mysterious mage. He spends a lot of his time summoning visions, gaining Medivh's trust, and eventually sees a vision of the person responsible for opening up the portal on Azeroth. Again, why was this changed? Isn't showing us a vision of Medivh's betrayal such a better fit for a visual medium? Number 6. Ogrim Doomhammer is a terrible friend. In the lore, Ogrim, just like Durotan, grows more and more suspicious of Gul'dan's actions, and eventually challenges Blackhand to a duel for leadership of the Horde. In the movie, Ogrim betrays his best friend Durotan out of sheer ignorance and blindly follows Gul'dan until it's painfully obvious to anyone that Gul'dan does not have the Orcs' best interest in mind. Worst friend ever. Oh yeah, and instead of Ogrim dueling Blackhand for leadership of the Horde, Lothar takes his place in a final fight that's so anticlimactic, it's over before I could even finish this sentence. Number 5. Gul'dan's entire character. In the lore, Gul'dan betrays his entire race in exchange for power, but what he lacks in morality, he more than makes up for in intelligence. Rather than expose himself, he appoints Blackhand as war chief of the Horde, and subtly manipulates everything behind the scenes with his enigmatic shadow council of powerful warlocks. In the movie, he's just Green Hitler. That's it! Your typical despot who rules with an iron fist, kills anyone who disagrees, and becomes shocked when people don't follow his every word. Like seriously, your whole species is proud tribal warriors, and you're gonna cheat in a duel that you could have easily talked your way out of? Jeez, I can't imagine what happens next.
What are you waiting for? Do as I say, traitors!
Number 4. Garona's entire character. I struggle to find a single aspect of Garona's character that wasn't completely screwed up in the movie. We start off with Garona introduced in shackles for committing the heinous crime of being a half-orc as she goes through the portal. It's unclear why they bring her on this skirmish other than so that she can inevitably be rescued by the humans, and after that happens, she spends the rest of the movie basically doing what other people tell her to do as either a prisoner or a soldier. In the original lore, Garona is a spy and an assassin bred by Gul'dan. I need to say more? Okay. She was among the first orcs to set foot on Azeroth. After the initial skirmish failed, Garona would eventually travel back and forth between the two worlds as an emissary, while secretly spying on the humans for Gul'dan. But the more she learned about the humans, the more she started to feel conflicting loyalties, and eventually she would side with the humans against her own kind. She does still commit regicide, but only because Gul'dan forced her to do so with spells. Garona is so involved with the events of the First War that she should have been the protagonist of this movie. Since she's an emissary, her perspective would allow us to seamlessly jump back and forth between the orcs and humans, solving many of the movie's pacing problems. Garona experiencing the internal conflict between her orcish brethren and her newfound human friends would have been a lot more interesting than seeing her sit around in cages all day. Furthermore, her curiosity about the human world and the amount of time she spends with Medivh would have provided the movie ample opportunity to deliver some much-needed exposition. Oh yeah, that's another thing. Number 3. Garona has an awkward and forced romance with Lothar. Since the movie decided to star Lothar as our human protagonist and Garona as our lead female character, it was incredibly predictable that we'd get a romance between the two. Because why bother stick to the source material when you can just do what every other movie has already done? In the Warcraft lore, Garona spends a lot of time getting to know Medivh, who would teach her all sorts of things about human culture and Azeroth as a whole. Eventually, the two would fall for each other and even had a child together. This relationship is much more important to the storyline because Garona is right there with Khadgar when he sees a vision of Medivh's betrayal. That's right. Garona is the most heartbroken by Medivh's betrayal, and as a result, she's supposed to be right alongside Lothar and Khadgar for the final battle. Wouldn't this have been a lot more interesting than what we got? Number 2. The orcs are corrupted by Gul'dan using too much fel magic? Now here's a change that's so bad it doesn't just screw up the Warcraft movie, it also screws up potential future Warcraft movies. Orcs in Warcraft, aside from being aliens, are not like the monsters of Middle-earth. Warcraft orcs only appear as rage-fueled beasts because Gul'dan betrayed his entire species by convincing them to drink the blood of the demon pit lord Mammoth, thereby making them slaves of the Burning Legion. The demon blood coursing through their veins is what gives the orcs their rage. This is not an inherent trait. This is how the orcs destroyed their homeworld. This is why the orcs invade the world of Azeroth. And this tragic backstory is what allows us, the audience, to sympathize with the orcs. And so, instead of a self-destructive tale of betrayal, what reason does the movie give for the corruption of the orcs?
A wizard did it.
Oh. Look, I get that a 2-hour movie is going to have to cut some corners, but this is not a corner! This is one of the most important events of the Warcraft lore! I mean, geez, this is up there with Bruce Wayne's parents get murdered! And of course, what does this mean for the Orcs storyline in Warcraft III when the Pit Lord Mammoth is slain and the Orcs are freed from their demonic enslavement? Great, I can't wait to see what else they change when that movie gets made. And the #1 worst change made for the Warcraft movie is... absolutely zero mention of Sargeras or the Burning Legion. If, like me, you went into the movie without knowing much about the First War of Azeroth, you probably have a few burning questions. How did Gul'dan obtain fel magic? Where does this fel magic come from? How did it corrupt Medivh? And most importantly, why did Medivh betray the world and open up the Dark Portal? The movie raises these questions and never provides an answer. And there is a very clear answer to all these questions. Wait for it. Wait for it. There! That guy. That's Sargeras. That's the main antagonist of the movie. That's the guy who leads an army of demons called the Burning Legion and who wants nothing less than the complete annihilation of all life in the universe. Sargeras is the one who showed Gul'dan how to wield fel magic. Sargeras is the one who sat dormant inside Medivh from the day he was born. And it was because of Sargeras that Medivh opened up the Dark Portal and betrayed the world. Why the hell would you even consider making a Warcraft movie and leaving all this out? I can't believe I have to explain this, but if you're doing fantasy storytelling, you have to introduce the world to your audience. That's why Lord of the Rings opens with a 10-minute narration detailing the events of a bygone war. That's why fantasy stories are most often told from the perspective of someone who, like the audience, is unfamiliar with the realm. So there you have it. 10 changes that, in my opinion, completely ruined the Warcraft movie. But hey, it could have been a lot worse. When Duncan Jones replaced Sam Raimi as director, he was very displeased with the script, calling it the stale fantasy trope of humans are the good guys, monsters are the bad guys, leading me to believe that Sam Raimi really didn't do his homework, because anyone who knows anything about Warcraft can tell you that the orcs are not a bunch of bad guy monsters. But despite my criticisms of Warcraft the movie and my belief that video game musicals might work better, I have faith that over time directors will figure it out. The lesson to be learned here is that video game movie adaptations should really try sticking to the source material. I know that sounds like an obvious lesson, but here we are. And that's all for my analysis. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments what you thought of the movie.